Hi there, this is Teacher Charmz and welcome to AngielskaUlica.pl. Have you heard the song, I Believe I Can Fly? Or the other song, If I Could, Then I Would? Well, those are the songs that you can hear saying I can, I could. Well, we're not gonna do a singing lesson today. We are going to discuss about modal verbs can, could, and their negative forms. So let's talk about it.
Modal verbs can, could, and their negative forms. Let's look at the usage of each of these modal verbs, starting with can. The first usage is to express an ability or lack of ability in the present or future. For example, I can check it tomorrow. They cannot dance, or they can't dance. Can as a possibility or ability. Can is used when you want to say something that is possible in the present, or someone has the ability to do something in the present. For example, he can swim. The verb after can, swim, is always in the present form. Let's take a look at another example. He can get here on time. The verb get is in the present form. The second usage of can is giving or not giving permission. For example, you can use my office. You cannot smoke here. Or you can't smoke here. Can as a request or permission. It is used to give or take permission in an informal way. With friends and family, you can use can, but in workplace or make requests from seniors, always use may. For example, can you switch on the light? So you're making a request to switch on the light. The verb switch is in the present form. This is an informal way of making a request. Next example, can I borrow your book? Verb borrow that follows can is in the present form. This is an informal way of asking a permission. Now let's talk about overusing of can. In very informal context, we tend to use can instead of the appropriate modal verb. Although this is acceptable, it is always best to use the correct modal verb in formal situations and in exams. Examples: in request, can you open the door? Could you open the door? That's the right one. Asking for permission. Can I use the phone? May I use the phone? A better one. To make a suggestion, we can meet next week, or we could meet next week. And finally, for a possibility for the present or the future, possibility, it can happen again, or it may, might, could happen again. Moving on to could. The first usage is ability or lack of ability in the past. I could read without glasses last year. I could not sleep last night, or I couldn't sleep last night. Now let's further explain how we use could as a past ability or a capability of doing something. When you want to say you could do something in the past, but probably you no longer can do it, you use the word could. Example: John could swim across the river when he was young. Probably John is now a grown-up boy. We're talking about when he was a child, so when he was young is an indication the time period was in the past. Could swim is a past ability. He was capable of doing this in the past. The verb is in the present form, but the sentence indicates a past ability. Next example: in my younger days, I could dance for longer hours. That means I could no longer do it. The verb that follows could is always present, but in my younger days is an indication of a past ability. Note: could is not necessarily always in the past. When you make a polite request in the present, it's always better to use could. And when you talk about something that happened in the past, you will have certain words that will refer to a past time period. Now let's take a look at how we can use could for a past possibility that didn't happen. You could have completed the project last night. Could have completed, that means this was possible in the past. Probably you chose not to do it. Verb is in the past participle, a past possibility that didn't happen. They could have reached on time if they had started early. With if and conditionals, that means they didn't start early, so they didn't reach on time. Could have plus the past participle. Let's remember that. The second common usage of could is for making a request. And in this case, it is always in the question form. For example, could you repeat that, please? Or, could we have a break, please? And the third usage of could is making a suggestion. In this case, could is only used in the affirmative. Example, what do you suggest we have for dinner? We could have fish. Now let's have a review on the common features of modal verbs. All modal verbs have the following features in common. They are always followed by the infinitive without to. They are the same for all the pronouns. They do not need auxiliaries. They take direct negative and question forms. And finally, they never combine with another modal verb. Now let's take a look at some common mistakes. A very common mistake is using with to after a modal. Remember that modals take the infinitive without to. I can to sing versus I can sing. She could running fast versus she could run fast. The second common mistake is conjugating he, she, and it, adding an s to your verb. Let's remember that modals are all the same for all pronouns. Examples, she can't swim versus she can swim. It might rain versus it might rain. The third category of mistake is using an auxiliary with a modal verb. Modal verbs take direct question and negative forms. Examples, do you can do this? So the correct question is, can you do this? He doesn't may like it. The correct negative is, he may not like it. And finally, modal verbs do not combine with each other. She will can come tomorrow. So for this sentence, you can just keep the modal verb can. She can come tomorrow. Or use a synonym for can and keep will. She will be able to come tomorrow.
So there you go. I wish I was able to share something about can, could, and their negative forms. But if you want to know more about it, come and visit our website. That's AngielskaUlica.pl and enroll in my class. Looking forward to having you there. Goodbye.